wondering, what'd you do today? How has today been for you?
It's been pretty mellow. Just sort of been reading my book, The Virgin Suicides, and just kind of hanging out, listening to music.
Kind of along that same vein, what music have you and the band been listening to while you are touring?
We've been listening to all sorts of stuff, from like Fleetwood Mac to Fela Kuti.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of all over the place.
Cool. So you, Of Montreal's put out a lot of albums. What was like the unique inspiration behind this newest one, and what kind of sets it apart for you?
Well, I guess the big thing for me was discovering extended dance mixes from the 80s of songs like, well, mostly like Prince songs and like songs from that sort of era. And so I'd kind of use that as a template for the structure of making or arranging the songs and producing the songs from the new record. So sort of take these 3-minute pop songs and then just expand them so that they go into like more interesting territories, but they still feel kind of cohesive. Like the beginning goes somewhere totally different, by the midway point, and by the end of the song it's very different, but it hopefully has something that like connects all the pieces together.
Cool. So also along with the new album, the album or the EP itself has 2 titles, and so does every song on it. What does that sort of mean for you, and why did you make that decision?
Well, first of all, it's definitely an album, not an EP, even though it's confusing because there's only 6 songs. But it could have been 12 songs, because so many of the songs are basically like 2 songs or 3 songs that I've just decided to call one song. But wait, what was the question?
Just sort of like what you're thinking behind doing 2 titles for each track on the album itself.
Yeah, because the songs are so long, they deal with a lot of different subject matter. So the beginning of the song might have lyrics that are addressing a certain concept that isn't addressed again throughout the rest of the song. So I could have had 4 or 5 song titles for each song, but just decided to stick with 2.
Yeah. Did you have any reason for wanting to keep those songs long? Was that just sort of keeping in the vein of the sort of like 80s dance mixes, or anything else there?
Yeah, I mean that, and also it's just fun to work on a larger, more epic scale, because there's so much like cut and paste with pop music where the verses and the choruses are always the same, and there's not much musical variety, and you're not really like stretching out that much. It's like not as much of a challenge really to just make a 3-minute pop song that's sort of following a very predictable pattern. So it's fun for me. It's a fun challenge to try to expand like what a pop song can be, and use something more along the lines of like a prog rock template. With prog rock, there's always different movements within the composition, and there's slower parts, faster parts, key changes, rhythm changes, and so I'm kind of making prog pop in a sense.
Cool. Yeah, I could definitely tell you're shifting a lot of like the sort of templates that you've worked with him before. Your live shows are definitely known for having a lot of like visual, exciting things, lots of like dancing and costuming. Do you ever think about that sort of thing while you're creating the album in the studio, or does that sort of come later?
Not so. Yeah, I don't really think about it too much while I'm composing and producing the tracks. It's something that comes later when I think about how I want to present it, and when I start collaborating with my brother David, who does a lot of the visual stuff, like all the animations and a lot of the costuming concepts and stuff like that. So we'll kind of like go through the new material and be like, what kind of costume change would look cool during this section of the song, and things like that.
Yeah, is there anything that you have new this tour that you've never done before that's like particularly exciting for you?
Well, the one big thing is that I'm not playing any musical instruments really.
Oh, cool.
So in the past I've been playing a lot of guitar. About half the set I'd be playing guitar on. So this is the first tour where I didn't even bring an amp or a guitar or anything, and so it's fun to just be the center of all of this music that's happening all around me that I'm not really contributing to aside from just vocally. And so in a way I feel like I'm communing with the music in the same way that the audience communes with the music, and so I feel more connected, just kind of being like a audience member myself, sort of like just in some interesting way, like not playing an instrument has helped me feel like more connected with the audience.
Okay, well, with this new album coming out, I guess that was last month now, and this big tour that's happening right now, what can our fans, our listeners expect next from Of Montreal?
For the next album?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully something more positive or following, because I've fallen in love recently, and I've been, working on myself, trying to better myself as a human being and become less cynical and more, less cynical, less judgmental, more optimistic, more caring, more empathetic, and so hopefully the new material represents that shift in my personality and my personal life.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Nobody's sleeping, nobody's